The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
Ads with Simon Pound from simonpound.com.
Yes, he's from the ad show on TVNZ7. It is Simon Pound. Last week we were talking about, we were going back in time, really, in a bit of a time machine, and we were going through some classic ads from the 50s and 60s and a little bit of the 70s, I think, in New Zealand as well. But we're going to continue this theme and bring it up to the present day.
Yes, tied into TVNZ's 50 Years of Television special, on the ad show we convened a 50 Years of TV advertising special. The TV ad, of course, has been the dominant form of advertising for many years, and recently it's had that dominance stripped by all the other channels that people are advertising through. But what this special that we did served to remind us was just how incredibly powerful TV advertising was and how central to a lot of cultural discussions, really. What we did was we got together Mike Hutchison, who is one of the founders of Colenso, which is the first modern major New Zealand agency, Neil Livingston, who's the head of 99, which is a Colenso offshoot, and he's had 30 years experience at 99. They've done things like helm the Nothing to Hide Air New Zealand videos, so they're right on the pace with interesting new stuff, although being a retail agency.
Yep.
And then also we had Jeff Dixon, who was one of the top producers of commercials for nearly 40 years. He started in '74, and his company Silver Screen produced everything you can care to think of, really. So we got them together, and we looked through what we could learn from how advertising was and what kind of effect it had on the country as well. So in the 70s, we looked at kind of how it was at the start last week, but in the 70s, advertising really came into its own as a supporter of other cultural forms. So what I mean by that is that it actually helped to build the film industry, and it helped to build other industries around it, like writing and catering and all these things that kind of support a creative industry. And so what we mean there is that filmmakers had steady work. They had lots of work on these commercials. They were able to get better at their craft and also able to actually make some cool stuff. So things like the Crunchy Bar ad and the Dear John ad and all these really big productions, they at once couldn't have happened if we didn't have advertising. And then Mike Hutchison goes to say that he believes that we couldn't have had such a good film industry if we hadn't had advertising. People like Lee Tamahori and just so many of these figures that, like Martin Campbell, these people that have gone on to direct Hollywood movies and all the rest of it, had their start in advertising. The 70s are pretty fruity as well, and some of the ads that you look at from then today seem very unusual. There's this remarkable one that's for Pinky Bar, and it's almost like a bit of an orgy-ish scene without the sex, if that was going to work. It's a really 70s, quite fruity kind of approach. And it was a musical number, which is also very representative of the 70s. There were a lot of really big productions, a lot of music, a lot of extras, a lot of moustaches, and a lot of singing. The one that stands out for a lot of people from the 70s is an animated cartoon of the KFC animated cartoon. And this ad has, I think we've talked about it before, but this ad has the two little fatties in the back seat, and they drive along, and they say that they're going to fade away unless they get some more KFC. So they pull into Kentucky Fried Chicken and get a big box of fried goodness, and therefore are happy, and it's got a lovely jingle. Moving into the 80s, the 80s were quite different. It was the guys that we got on reckon that the stories that everyone tells about the 80s as being these extreme days were a bit true, that there were an enormous number of long lunches and lunches that turned into dinner, and that there was kind of money sloshing around for the first time and a confidence in using local products for the first time. So they were the glory days because these advertising men were unchallenged. Nothing was stronger than a TV ad. We were still at a position where there was less inventory than demand. So, if you wanted to advertise on TV, you had to wait to get on there. pretty much if you took an ad on TV1 and an ad in the Listener, Mike Hutchison said, you reached every single person in the country who wasn't in a coma.
Wow. Wow.
So,
imagine if those if that was the situation today.
Well, I think we had a more homogenised culture then than we do now as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, people were all doing the same stuff. So they were able to go to lunch and drink for 5 hours and just have a party. And there's one ad that really captures that for me, and it's this ad for a beer called 10 that we no longer have anymore. And it's got pretty much every single thing that you're not allowed to advertise in beer ads today is in this advertisement. They show people drinking it. It's party scenes. A dude scores a woman as a result of it, and then everyone sings, "You've scored a 10." And it's got gratuitous shots of her breasts, which probably they do still manage to kind of sneak through today. But and there's smoking, and there's drinking, and there's all kinds of stuff. It's very entertaining.
There's drunken revelry in the background as well.
It's way overproduced. There's no need for like six sevenths of it. It's long. It's a sing dance number. It just seems to be everything that's kind of excessive about the 80s there. And then we moved into the 90s, and if the 70s were about finding a New Zealand voice, and the 80s were fun, the 90s was when New Zealand arrived as a advertising creative force for television advertising. And those were the glory years. Such and Saatchi Wellington in this time, they were consistently in the top 10 agencies in the world. And they were doing great work that is in that real kind of like storytelling, great fun, get everyone involved, brand ad kind of thing.
Yeah.
So things like the Spot the Dog ads and the telecom meerkats and animal work, the Instant Kiwi ad with the bungee jumper where the guy jumps off the bridge to pick the trout out of the river, and the Fernley family saga, where they told the story of the family that was going through the divorce issues.
Yes.
Over a series of advertisements. It went for so long that the brand it was advertising changed from Fernleaf to Anchor, which is quite remarkable. And Lee Tamahori actually directed those ads. Little nugget of trivia there.
Huh.
So the 90s were these years when there was a great confidence and these great stories, and also still a willingness by these big brands to spend big on these campaigns. I mean, if you think back to all of those Toyota campaigns with kind of and Air New Zealand campaigns, there just seemed to be helicopters flying up and down the country 24/7, making these enormously expensive advertisements. But as the show ended, and these guys that we got in, they all kind of talked about the way that the ad isn't as supreme as it used to be. And as a result, something has been lost because you don't have this one conversation with everyone. And of course, there's pluses and minuses to that. The fact that there's so many different kinds of media and communication and niche interesting, it's great because lots of advertising supports lots of different kind of conversations now. But yeah, the ability just to talk to everyone and have everyone in the same place has been lost.
Everything's so fractured, isn't it, and dispersed around.
Yeah, which is a plus if you kind of think, shit, I don't want to watch the same thing and think the same thing as everyone else. But is not so great if you do.
Well, shall we go out on one that I think most people will remember, the classic bugger ad, which changed our attitude somewhat to, I guess, blue language on TV?
Yes, and this one that that it was in 1999 that this was made, and it feels more modern than that in some ways. But it really was one of the last major, if you were to look at it as almost a turning point from when it was television ad at the centre of everything, and this was one of the last that had the real power to shake things up and help to actually change the language use of the country.
Exactly. It is the bugger ad. Simon Pound, thanks so much, and we'll talk to you next week. SimonPound.com, of course, as well.
Hi, mate.
See ya.
Bugger. Ooh, bugger me.
better now, son.
Ooh, bugger.
Hey, Brad.
Bugger.
Bugger.
Bugger.